On today's show, we wrap up our season in reviews with the hockey operations department. We'll discuss head coach Travis Green and general manager Steve Staios.
And the Ottawa Senators did have a signing yesterday, but it's probably not the player you expected.
This is Brady Kachuk, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome! You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators, the only daily podcast covering the Sens. On the outskirts of enemy territory, I'm Ross Levitan, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Today is Wednesday, May 21st, and Pillsy, we've crunched the numbers. We've looked at this past season versus the year before, and it's safe to say the Sens got better in just about every category.
And Ross, they got better in the most important category, in my opinion. Simple analytics, Ross. Playoff games played. They had 0 2 seasons ago, and they get 6 this year and 1 May game.
Love that. We need more games in May, and Travis Green will have his hands full trying to get even better next season. I'm going to save the graphic we're going to pull up for those watching on YouTube because I want to add next season stats in to keep this train rolling, how the Senators get better. Let's start with Travis Green. A little later in the show, we'll get into Steve Staios, and it'll then roll perfectly in to Lucas Ellinas signing his entry-level contract. Congratulations to Luke. We'll explain why now was an appropriate time for Ellinas to be rewarded with that contract. But Travis Green came in about a year ago today, honestly. I want to say it was right around mid-May that Travis Green was hired. It was to mixed reviews. There were a lot of more experienced names out there that the Sens had interviewed, from Craig Berube to Todd McClellan to Dean Evison. They settled on Travis Green, and he came in right away with a mindset that we're going to be better defensively. Easy to do when you were the Ottawa Senators of years past and near the bottom of the league in almost every defensive analytic, and safe to say that he accomplished those goals with the Senators being a much tougher team to play against and a team that was able to bend and not break more times than not.
Yeah, certainly the defensive structure of this team has gotten better last year based on 2 seasons ago. But we have to be honest, Ross, I think the big outlier is acquiring a Vezina winning goalie and trading away a non-Vezina winning goalie. And I mean, hey, you got to give Levi Marilainen stick taps too for the small sample size he came in. He was absolutely amazing. But sure, having a good goalie is important, but the defensive structure that Travis Green and the coaching staff instilled in this team and the players buying into it was really obvious because, Ross, even when key defensive players were injured or even key offensive players were injured, the defensive structure of the team overall and guys that had to be elevated in the lineup was still apparent, and they were still focusing on making sure they were tighter defensively than they were 2 years ago.
They gave up 80 less high danger scoring chances this year. That's 1 per game that you're helping out your goalie and allowing them to do the rest. So I think that Travis Green did a really good job with that. I do think that the offense maybe hindered more than anybody would have liked, and we'll get into how the shooting percentage played a role in that. But you'd like to be able to be better defensively, but not at the expense of your offensive output.
Yeah, and I think that's something that takes time, Ross. Like when you really focus on your defensive game, your offense is going to struggle. I think it's about evening that out and finding the balance and adjusting to, okay, we want to be a better team defensively, but we still want to be able to push a little bit more offensively. And I do think, Ross, this offseason, we're going to see Steve Staios try, or at least I hope, and my opinion is that Steve Staios is going to try to acquire an elite goal scorer, and that will help with offense because the Senators still don't quite have that elite level finisher.
This year, the Ottawa Senators had 45 wins, the 5th most wins in a single season in franchise history. It's 8 better than they had last year with 37, and they even did better than that with regulation wins, 35 versus 25 last year. That's a difference of plus 10. You think that's good? Well, you need goals to win games. And this past season, they were a plus 10 as a goal differential as a team. Last year, minus 31. So that's a difference / improvement of plus 41. Again, a differential of more of exactly a goal every 2 games. That's going to add up over the course of a season. 5-on-5 scoring, again, needs to get better. Still minus 18 this year. That needs to be close, if not in the positives next season, but that's still 11 better than they did last year with a minus 29 goal differential, which leads us in to goals for per game, which actually went down 0.1. So 1 goal less every 10 games for the Ottawa Senators this season, and they made up for it on the defensive side of it. Their goals against average 2 years ago, 3.43, among the worst in the National Hockey League. They got right up to the middle of the pack there with a 2.83. So an improvement of 0.6 goals against per game. Pillsy, what number of those jumps out most to you?
Well, I want to talk about the goals against, Ross, because for me, that's the big one. And that leads into the goal differential, obviously. But a stat that we didn't put up, Ross, that I was just quickly checking, another simple stat. I'm a simple stat guy, not a math guy, so the simple ones really work for me. This year, the Ottawa Senators had 10 shutouts, Ross, and they got shutouts from 3 different goalies, 3 from Forsey, 3 from Levy, and 4 from Ellinas Ullmark. Do you know how many shutouts they got last year, Ross?
I'm looking it up hectically right now.
Well, no, don't look it up. I know.
Okay, fine. I'm going to stop looking it up. I'll say 2.
You obviously got there.
I actually didn't. Didn't.
Okay.
Nope, I didn't. I got to the page of shutout leaders from last season. So if it gave it away that neither Forsberg nor Korpisalo nor Matt Sogard had more than 5 shutouts individually last year, then I did not cheat.
Okay, fair. I'll take you at your word there. But yeah, so we're looking at 8 less shutouts 2 seasons ago. So, and Forsey was the one that got both of them. I believe one of my hot takes, Ross, was that Jonas Korpisalo was going to get more shutouts that season than he had in his entire career. That didn't work out for me. That certainly was a spicy take that flamed out. But that's a big one. Yeah, exactly. When we're talking about team defense and goaltending, being able to completely shut the door on teams is huge. And then you even think, Ross, there was a lot of games where they only let 1 goal in, like most notably the game up against the Capitals where Ovi gets that goal in overtime. So like,
and Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh too. They really tightened things up, and it had a great effect on the overall season.
Yeah, got to be the only team that lost 2 1-0 games this season, both in overtime. Like that.
To Crosby and Ovechkin.
Oh my goodness. Team shooting percentage went down 0.5% year over year. Their shots per game went down 2.4, but their shots against went down 1.1, which is obviously a positive if you're looking at it from a Senators perspective, allowing a little bit less. How else did Travis Green impact this roster? Well, the special teams were better on both accounts. The power play went up almost 6%. The Senators, especially at home, were an elite power play team this past season. So shout out to Daniel Alfredson, who runs the power play for the Sens. And penalty kill went up 2.6%. I still believe there's room for improvement on the PK. We'll see how the adjustments work with that diamond formation. They did make a very good adjustment. Some would say too little after they allowed 3 power play goals in game 1 of the playoffs, but they were getting a lot more aggressive. Whenever a player's back was turned or they bobbled a puck, bang, there was a player on them making life miserable. So I think the Senators, with their speed on the penalty kill, can continue in that direction, and we'll see if they can get that over 80% next season. But a lot of people say in the hockey world, if your power play and penalty kill add up to over 100%, you're doing something right. And the Senators were at 101.5%. Sorry, 100. And yeah, 101.5%. Math guy there. Big addition. But hey, still a bit of room for improvement, I think, especially on the PK, but good to see it went up from some pretty horrific numbers the year before.
Yeah, and I mentioned how I want the Senators to find an elite finisher, Ross. I also want them to find an elite penalty killer. Like I want that the new fourth line center. We assume Adam Gaudette will find greener pastures somewhere. The new fourth line center, I want to be a defensive specialist that's going to be paired with Michael Amadio as this team's top penalty killers in my mind.
Yeah, I like that. And we'll continue on. They blocked 86 less shots this season than last, but you could spin zone that by saying the puck wasn't in their defensive zone nearly as much.
Yeah, and I thought about that spin zone too, Ross, but then I don't know if you could use that spin zone for blocks and then try to spin it again for hits, because the argument goes the other way. If you have more hits, you got the puck less.
Well, I'd love to see, and I'm sure Sport Logique has this. It's not readily available, but what area in the ice the hits are, because I did find the Senators were an elite forechecking team
Fair.
and creating contact off the initial dump in. So I would be curious to see that, because the Senators did finish with 112 more hits than they had last 2 seasons ago. And that's with Brady Tkachuk missing 10 games this season as well. The faceoff percentage didn't impact the playoffs in a positive way, but overall the Senators were plus 2% on the faceoff dot. I think they finished 5th in the league, if I'm not mistaken, 4th in the league in faceoff percentage during the regular season. Some 5-on-5 metrics. We'll get your thoughts on these, Pilsy. The Senators' 5-on-5 shot attempts percentage went down 0.4, still over 50, just barely. Their 5-on-5 goals percentage went up a full percentile, but still below 50. It's at 47% now. Their expected goals percentage went up just ever so slightly, again, under 50%. Their shooting percentage went down almost a full percent at 5-on-5, that is. 7.6% was their going rate this season. And of course, the biggest indicator for a successful team is getting saves. And the Senators' 5-on-5 save percentage went up almost 2% year over year. Of course, we discussed why Linus Ullmark is a better goalie than what they had before. But I think my biggest problem with these numbers is that as a team now, their expected chances have been multiple percentages higher than what they're actually able to accomplish, which again speaks to the finishing ability they have to address this summer.
Yeah, and I'd be interested, Ross, to see the splits before and after the trade deadline on all these 5-on-5 metrics, right? Because we know Steve Staios and the general manager staff targeted that as one of their top statistics to improve on this team, acquiring Dylan Cousins, who had much better 5-on-5 numbers than Josh Norris, acquiring Fabian Zetterlund, who had good 5-on-5 numbers, and that was supposed to add a scoring punch throughout the lineup. So I'd be curious to see if there's a big difference once those two players were added.
Yes, and the last stat that I wanted to say for Travis Green, and I think this also speaks to the maturity of the group. Last year, the Senators were 33-2-1 when leading after 2 periods. So they only had 2 regulation losses when leading after 2 periods. 2 seasons ago, they had 5, more than double. 24-5-1 was their record when leading after 2 periods. So that in itself shows to me a team that's committed to closing out games. And then the Senators had the best record in the National Hockey League when they scored first. They were 35-6-0 when scoring first. That winning percentage is tied with the Winnipeg Jets, who, won the President's Trophy this season.
Decent.
2 seasons ago, they were 22-14-1 when scoring first, which is one of the worst. Like they won 55% of their games when scoring first, getting out to a lead. So good on Travis Green for straightening that out.
Yep.
I don't expect him to lead the league in that category next year, but it certainly is encouraging that this team was able to play with the lead, something that they had not been able to do in the past. Pilsy, on the other side, we'll get your grade of Travis Green. We'll look at Steve Staios, the moves he made. How did the players he acquired last summer and throughout the season improve or stay flat from where they were before? Then we'll wrap up today's show talking about Senators prospect Luke Ellinas. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Wonderful Pistachios. Pistachio Pillsy here, looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Will crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Pistachios are one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer.
I've started chopping them up a little bit, and I put them in my yogurt in the morning. It's a nice little crunch.
Okay, so Ross does all the prep work, cracking open the shells of those lightly salted pistachios. But Ross, if you want to save yourself some time, if you know you're slicing them up and putting them in a different snack, check out the no shells variety. The work is already done for you. So whether you're snacking at your desk during the podcast, on a road trip to Ottawa, or you just need a quick protein boost, they're always my go-to snack. So get snacking and get cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more.
Today's episode is also brought to you by our good friends over at Club EG. It is golf season, and I know it's rainy the next couple days in the nation's capital, but the forecast next week looks beautiful. So why not take advantage of Club EG's membership? Whether you're a male, female, junior, senior, good golfer, or you just love getting out and having a great time, Club EG has something for you. You can purchase a membership and join over 60 great courses that Club EG partners with. You can join a golf league, go on a golf trip, or play in the Ottawa Sun Scramble, a 2-person scramble championship. It's completely up to you which path you take with Club EG. You can check out clubeg.golf for more information and to learn about so many great options that will get you playing more golf this summer. With 60 great courses through Club EG, you have so many options, their trips, tournaments, leagues, it's all top notch. You don't have to be a member to take part in any of those events, leagues, or trips, but if you want to play their great 60 courses day in and day out, there's a great early bird special going on right now, so go check them out at clubeg.golf. All right, Philsy. So, Travis Green, overall thoughts. We've crunched the numbers, but overall, how are you feeling? Give him a letter grade here, a little report card.
All right, Professor Pillsy in the house here. I'll go with a B plus, Ross. I thought maybe an A minus, but I'll go with a B plus. He did a great job tightening this team up defensively. I think he was able to, for the most part, based on the roster he's been given, slot guys in their roles a little bit more effectively than we've seen in the past. Find guys that have good chemistry together. And I really think that he's probably impressed a lot of Senators fans that might have been underwhelmed or disappointed that the Ottawa Senators signed Travis Green to be the head coach, as opposed to some of the other coaches that were available that had better playoff experience or maybe higher win percentage or just had been head coaches for longer. The one thing I will say, Ross, is remember when Travis Green was hired, all the talk was he's going to whip this team into shape come training camp. We didn't really see or get the vibe that the training camp was as gruesome or as tough as his reputation was. But I think that's partly maybe him growing and being like, look, I don't need to beat these guys into the ground the first day I step onto the ice as a new head coach. So I think that's probably actually a good thing. And it seems like these guys really buy into his message and respect him as a coach. So B plus grade for Travis Green, in my opinion.
Yeah, I like that. It's his best winning percentage in his NHL career as a head coach. The year that he was with Vancouver, the year that ended early because of COVID, he had 36 wins in 69 games, which obviously means there was a little bit more time for him to improve on that. But 45 wins, man, that's 10 more than he's had in a full 82-game season as a head coach. And I think that as the season went on as well, he got a lot better with the media. I felt like at the start he was a little bit short, a little bit, let's say, serious, for lack of a better word. And I think as the season went on, he started to play off of it a little bit better. Did he show up giggling like Jacques Martin sometimes 2 years ago? No, but I think the Senators needed that comic relief a little bit as well. At least the fans did. Watching Jacques come up, it's like, hey, you light up a little Mary J's backstage, you have a little fun there, Jacques. But remember, I think it was a San Jose game. It was all-time press conference there. But obviously, Jacques Martin helps out a lot, and it leads me in to why I'm giving him an A-, something we haven't discussed. Because as we discussed Travis Green, it really is a reflection of the entire coaching staff, right? How elite were the Ottawa Senators on challenges this year?
Yeah. The video challenges were very good. I don't know the stats, but I know it was pretty damn good. And then Ross, we looked at the special teams. I thought special teams, both areas improved. So that's shout out to the assistant coaches as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to building off of that. How is Steve Staios going to continue building this team to move ahead and get higher expectations going into next season after the first playoff berth in 8 years? We'll get into Steve Staios next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day. All right, Pilsy. So let us know in the comments how you felt about Travis Green's first season as the Ottawa Senators head coach. Of course, he was hand-selected by the management group led by Steve Staios, the president of hockey operations and general manager, who has almost been on the job for 2 years. He was hired at the end of September of 2023 and then took over as general manager on November 1st of that year after the Evgeny Dadonov trade debacle punishment came down. So it takes more time, I would say, to build the team as the general manager versus as the head coach. Certainly there's an adjustment period for both, but now you look at the roster and Steve Staios has a lot of his guys on there. How do you think he has progressed this team over the course of the last 20 months?
He's done a great job. And I think, again, kind of similar to the Travis Green hiring and the vibe around the fan base, maybe a little underwhelming. Or I should say, other than the Ellinas Allmark trade, which was obviously a home run blockbuster trade, I think a lot of fans were underwhelmed by the decisions and the moves that Steve Staios decided to make. Like the Chychrun trade, I think at the time, a lot of fans were like, wait, what? We gave up Jacob Chychrun for a veteran defenseman and a third-round pick. It costed us a boatload of top draft picks to get Chychrun, and then we only got him for a little bit, and that seemed underwhelming. Then you look at free agency. There's all these big players. Everybody has so much expectations. And then you go and sign depth guys like Michael Amadio, Noah Gregor, and David Perron. Like those were very underwhelming moves, but they paid off as the season went on and as those guys got acclimated to their new spots, especially late season, come playoff time. Those players were key parts in the Ottawa Senators having success. So I think Steve Staios, steady Stevie Staios, he's not going to try to make the big splash for the wow factor like maybe Pierre Dorion did. He's going to try to find the right pieces to place and make this puzzle work. And if that means maybe doing things slowly and not as aggressively and maybe not getting the big names, that's the way you got to build a hockey team properly.
But that said, like he probably had not the most, but he was top 5 general managers in terms of, I want to say mass, like not necessarily the quantity of moves, but at the trade deadline, like those were 2 major moves that he made to shake up the core of the team, moving on from Josh Norris and then getting Fabian Zetterlund. Like that's a pretty aggressive move for him.
No, that's fair. I guess I was more referring to the offseason, but yeah, those are definitely aggressive moves at the trade deadline. And both of them were moves that were unexpected. Like we talked about Fabian Zetterlund. I don't think anyone had him on the radar as a guy being shopped. If it's kind of crazy the Sharks did that. He's the perfect guy to be on that team, and he was having success there. And then Dylan Cousins, I think there was rumors that he was available, but moving two second line centers in their 20s with term and over $7 million cap hits at the deadline is not something you see very often. So yeah, he pushes his chips in when it's time, Ross, but for the most part, he plays a conservative game.
Which is what I like. You want to have a guy who has that measured approach. And they always talk, our good friend Dave Poulin told us, it's about accelerating patience. How do you stay patient, but accelerate the process? And Staios addressed needs that they had. And you got to give credit to Sean Tierney, who runs the analytics, sent Steve the email that said bad ideas and told him, hey, you got to stay away from certain players. If you have a copy of that email, I would love to see it. But jokes aside, I do think that he's more collaborative than his predecessor, and that's allowing multiple voices to weigh in about how this team can get better. And I think Steve Staios has done a remarkable job. And if you look at the players that he brought in this past off season, only David Perron, we know there are extenuating circumstances why his points per 60 minutes was worse this year than last year. Of course, one of them his age, but and role. He was top 6 forward all the time in Detroit. This year, he found his way into the top 6 and ended the season as his mainstay on that second line. But throughout the course of the regular season, he had his ups and downs. He went down from 2.4 points per 60 minutes of ice time to 1.6. Michael Amadio went to 1.6 from 1.7, so a negligible difference when you know what he brings on the defensive side of the puck. Everyone else was a slam dunk. Nick Cousins was up from 1.1 to 1.5. Adam Gaudette jumps up to 1.8 after not even playing in the NHL last year, more than 2 games. Noah Gregor even had a bit of an uptick in point production before being moved at the deadline. Nick Jensen almost doubled his points per 60 minutes while being a reliable player defensively. Dylan Cousins, 2.8 points per 60 minutes, a full point more than he had in Buffalo this year. And then obviously Fabian Zetterlund couldn't find the back of the net. And even though he had lots of opportunities, he went down a full point from 2 to 1.0. Linus Ullmark's save percentage dropped a little bit from 915 to 909. And you can look at the start of the season as exactly that. We covered him extensively in our season in review and how his numbers through a large portion of the season was above 920. He was playing as an elite goalie in the National Hockey League. So that's a long-winded way of saying that Steve Staios inherited a mess. The cap was maxed out. The draft picks were empty. The cupboard had all graduated from prospects to NHLers. And I think that he has done a great job in the short term of resetting this organization. Now, that's not to say it's complete. The draft coming up is going to be extremely critical to continue replenishing the prospect pool. But from what he started with to where the team's at, you can't help but give this guy his flowers. So I'm going to go with an A- again for Steve Staios. I think he's showing best in class, even the little things. I mentioned the press conferences for Travis Green, but not negotiating the media, not saying it and then actually doing it 5 seconds later, but actually being professional in your interviews and being thoughtful, giving the fans information, but not opening the book and saying, here's exactly what we're going to do. I think it's just been a breath of fresh air and a much needed change in the GM seat.
And one of the things I want to highlight, Ross, is his trade negotiations as well. Like, was it the Travis Hamonic deal, Ross, where Pierre Dorion after was like, what was it? Well, they wanted a 5th and we didn't have a 5th or a 4th, so we had to give them a 3rd or something. There was something like that where it was just like,
yeah, it was
just complete like, oh, well, we're just going to give them everything they want for an aging veteran defenseman, and we're not going to negotiate or try to even things out. That was the Ottawa Senators of the past negotiating, just pushing in chips easily, like not very safe with the bets they were making. And then you look at Steve Staios during the trade deadline. They were talking about how to acquire Zetterlund, the San Jose Sharks were looking at a package involving Josh Norris. And while that was going on, he was kind of fending them off like, no, we're not really interested in trading Norris in a Zetterlund package, but we're still interested in Zetterlund. And then early morning, he flips Norris for Cousins and then says, hey, look, sorry the Norris thing didn't work out, but let's find something else that can work for this Fabian Zetterlund deal. And he gets both those deals done rather than overpaying. Like, what deal would have had to be done, Norris Zetterlund, for that to make sense? Like, I don't know how they could have done that in a way that would have worked out for the Ottawa Senators. So he did a great job the trade deadline, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. And we'll see what Steve Staios has in store this summer. Let us know in the comments how you felt about the season that was for Steve Staios. We also put out on Twitter at Sens Central, how would you grade the job that management did since the end of the 2023-24 season? All the answers range from a B to an A. Nobody is saying that this guy has done a poor job. One job got done, though. Luke Ellinas has signed his entry-level contract. The Kitchener Rangers centerman led his team in scoring throughout the playoffs. He was clutch in big moments, had a hat trick, finishes the OHL playoffs with 16 points in 14 games after a 20-goal season in a year that was cut short due to injury, where he only played 50 games. He was a part of that fourth round for the Senators that also netted them Blake Montgomery and Javon Moore. So what are your thoughts, the timing of it, that Luke Ellinas is being rewarded with his entry-level deal?
Not gonna lie, Ross, I was a little surprised because you talk about how well Luke Ellinas was in the playoffs, 16 points in 14 games, certainly very impressive. But his last game was over 3 weeks ago. Like, it's just funny that it's happening now. I'm not sure what caused this timing to have the signing happen, but hey, this is a good player that shows promise. He's someone that was a part of that trio in the fourth round. But the Sens won the fourth round of the draft. That is undisputed.
Hell yeah.
So nothing wrong with getting these guys signed. I imagine Luke Ellinas goes back to the Kitchener Rangers next year. We'll see what kind of team they have, as I think they have some graduating players. Andonovsky, also Sens prospect, Kitchener Rangers captain, among one of the players that will be moving on. So it's interesting timing for sure, Ross. But I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing something like this. So I don't have anything against it. And I'm happy for Luke.
Yeah, I'm happy for him as well. And he is going to be back in the Ontario Hockey League next season. It's just kind of, I think, a tip of the cap that, hey, you improved dramatically year over year. And I think that this is just going to give him a little extra fire, a little extra motivation for next season to go out there and be a leader on the Kitchener Rangers. He also, by the way, already wears a letter down there. So he's looked upon very fondly. We have their broadcaster on, Sean Fafaro, from time to time, and he had just glowing reviews about the kid that Luke Ellinas is. And by the way, he grew up a Sens fan in Toronto. So a little extra, fan favoritism for Sens fans. We love to see that. So congratulations to Luke Ellinas getting that deal. Excited to see him at development camp. Like, he's a guy that I think could turn some heads there. I'm not for a minute saying he's going to make the team out of camp, not even close, but I do think long-term, we talk about replenishing the cupboard. If a guy like Luke Ellinas, who wasn't in our top 10 prospects when we did them at the midseason, that's something where he won't be in our top 10 this summer. We always do one midseason, one in the summer. But if he has a great start to next season, he could be like Blake Montgomery and find himself in the mix as a guy who I think one day his potential is like a bottom six or third line player that can kill penalties and be a very hard player to play against. A lot of the scouts really liked him in his draft year. And I know elite prospects in particular, they were very, very high on Luke Ellinas. So congratulations to him, and another piece of business done for the Ottawa Senators. We expect more to be coming in the coming days, hours, minutes. Come on, give us some news, Stevie. Pillsy, any final thoughts on today's show?
Final thoughts for me, Ross, is the PWHL is thriving in Ottawa. Emily Clark gets the game winner in overtime up against the Minnesota Frost. That highlight, Ross, we posted it at Sens Central on Twitter. That's what women's hockey needs to be like. Like the barn was rocking. There was lots of fans with hilarious signs. There was that one chick that did the glasses on for the refs that were reviewing the call. That was hilarious. You can sense that there is some real kind of rivalries brewing, and that the fans are actually invested in their teams and they know the storylines, and it's a big deal. So I'm happy that it seems like professional women's hockey is finally in the right place where it deserves to be, and these athletes get to feel the passion from all these fans. So to everyone going to the games, keep supporting the Ottawa Charge, as they are so close to the championship.
It's a best of 5, so they are 2 wins away from the Walter Cup. And by the way, for all the talk of the Toronto Scepters, they get all their hometown GTA players want to go play in Toronto, Montreal. They got Marie-Philippe Poulin. They've got all these studs. Well, guess what? That win last night was the first PWHL final game that was won on Canadian soil. So let's go, Ottawa, leading the way for women's hockey. And game 2 goes tomorrow night from TD Place Arena. Go send the ladies down to Minnesota with another great performance. And make sure to check out the Glebe Central Pub while you're in the Glebe. It's walking distance from Lansdowne. Let them know that Locked On Senator sent you. The series will then shift to Minnesota for 2 games. And then, if necessary, the 5th and deciding game will be in Ottawa on May 28th. So congratulations to friend of the show, Emily Clark, and all the Ottawa Charge, and Ottawa for just showing up and showing out. This is a hockey town, and we cannot thank you guys enough for being a part of our little hockey show. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. Thank you for liking, watching, listening, and subscribing to the show. If you enjoyed the video, click the thumbs up below, leave a comment, and if you really enjoyed it, go to your favorite audio podcast platform and leave a 5-star review. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.